one of the guest programmers for the IN Festival 2020 programming committee. I'm honored to be here today. Joining us today are the incredible filmmakers. And you know what, we've got a little time, so I'm just going to kind of like ask you all to just kind of introduce yourself, and if you can tell us where you are, where you're from, and your film's name, and kind of like how the story came to you. Do you want to start, Miguel?
Sure, thank you. So nice to meet everyone this way. My name is Miguel Hilari. I'm from Bolivia. I'm of Aymara and German origin, and my film is called Bocamina, which is translated as Pithole, being Pithole the entrance of a mine, but in Spanish the word also means mine mouth, which gives the mine like a certain human quality, which I like. And it's a film about a colonial, a city called Potosi, a city in Bolivia that was founded nearby a big mountain full of silver that was exploited by the Spanish in colonial times. And in some way, the city continues with this colonial history or way to say something. And what I did was first film a little bit of the work inside of the mine, and then in the second part I showed mostly in schools images, old images from colonial times or from beginning of the 20th century, and the children reacted to these images. So it's a film maybe divided into two parts, and it's about memory, images, labor, and colonialism also. Yeah.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful film. Thank you. Who wants to go? Jeffrey, would you like to speak?
Sure. Thank you for having me. And my name is Jeffrey Gibson. I live in the Hudson Valley, just north of New York City. And my families are from Mississippi, Band of Choctaw Indians, and my mother is Cherokee. And I don't actually consider myself a filmmaker, so I feel a little humbled here today. I was commissioned by Times Square Arts to do a video piece for the monitors in Times Square. And I was very excited about that. And I chose to do a video because I wanted to kind of overtake Times Square. And I'm pretty fascinated by standing in the middle of Times Square and how much light happens, you know, even when it's sunny outside. And I had worked with Sarah Ortegon previously on a video I did in 2015. And Sarah is a champion jingle dress dancer. And so I tried to work with some old footage from that video, and it wasn't high quality enough for what I wanted to do. So we brought her back to my studio in just in upstate New York, and we reshot her dancing in her own regalia, probably about 5 different times. And then the video in Times Square was only, I think it's 2 minutes and 57 seconds is what we're able to do. But it takes over 70 screens. So we cut a video together that we made 3 versions of, so that you could get the sense of about 180 dancers dancing over Times Square. And they range anywhere from 9 feet tall to I think some of them are probably about 20 feet tall. And there's lots of pattern and lots of sound. And then we got permission from a tribe called Red for her to perform to that. So in the video, you'll hear the song Sisters by a tribe called Red. And unfortunately in Times Square, there's no way to have the sound be present. So we just let people know that. And if you're online, you can see it. But then also Sarah came and did a live performance, actually just at the beginning of COVID. So it was the weekend before everything's shut down. So it was the last thing I experienced. But yeah, we've actually had a few requests to show the video. We're still trying to figure out different ways because like I said, it was on 70 different monitors.
Wow.
So, you know, there's lots of variations on how it can be shown. So I think, but at this point, I actually, during COVID, have been working on 3 video projects. And so we just launched another one this past week, but that's the way that I've been keeping busy. And so I pay attention to all of you because I've made a number of videos now, but sort of from a perspective of someone who works with materials and sculpture and painting. But yeah.
It must have been so powerful just standing there and watching 70 screens and that many dancers.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's really wild. I think actually on Times Square Art's website, you can see, they had documentary people there to document what the whole experience was like, but it was pretty over the top. And I think because of COVID, it ended up playing on the screens, I think until the end of August. So that was, in a weird way, meaningful to have that dancing happening in the center of Manhattan for that period of time, especially when the streets were empty.
It's a lot of healing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Shelley, do you want to say hi?
Yeah. Hi. Hi, I'm Shelley Niro. I'm Mohawk Turtle Clan from Six Nations, living in Brantford, Ontario right now. And I did a short film on Pauline Johnson, Tekahionwake, meaning double wampum. And I find her story really fascinating and really inspiring. When I was growing up on Six Nations, we, every year there was like just before the fall fair, we had a Pauline Johnson Day where we had to learn a poem and we had to illustrate that poem and what it meant to us. And then there were times we had to do copy her memorial that was situated in Stanley Park and recreate the memorial. So it's like we were pretty invested in her life, even though she had passed away maybe 50 years before that time. But I just remember teachers and people, just people in the community just really loved her. And so this film really gave me a good opportunity to learn more about her. We wanted to make it into a feature film, but because of funding, we had to cut back. And, so this is kind of like a trailer of her future feature. And, if she was alive today, she'd be a rock star. She totally dominated the stage and her presence in Canada. And I think it was also maybe some of the US and Britain where she was seen as quite a prominent artist. And I think, sometimes those people fade away. So I think by bringing a little film back like this, hopefully it'll bring back some of that interest to her.
Mm-hmm. And I love the subtle humor in it.
Yeah.
As you often do. Thank you for sharing. Hi, Marja, do you want to say hi?
Yes, hi. I'm a Sami person, so from Finland, part of Sami land. So my film was actually made for this short film series for International Sami Film Institute. And they wanted a short films about this corona time, this COVID virus. And they made altogether, they let some small fund to make 15 films altogether. And mine was part of that. And it was the maximum length was 5 minutes. And then there was actually about 3 to 4 weeks time to do the whole film from the beginning to the end and editing and everything. So it was really, I was really in a hurry. And so I made this story about my grandfather's cousin, this guy called Ola-Ivar Helander, who was living in Sami area in the border of Finland and Norway, in the north of Finland. And he was my relative. And when there was this Spanish flu pandemic in 2018, so he and his brother, they wanted to, in a way, stay away from this death and this Spanish flu. So they made a grave. So actually this Ola-Ivar made his own grave, dig a grave, and then he went lying there and put some turf onto him, and then he was thinking that when the death or the Spanish flu pandemic will come, so the death will think that he's already dead. So I wanted to do that because I live in south of Finland, in Helsinki, which is not Sami area. It's actually the capital of Finland, and to Utsjoki, where my relative still lives, it's like 1,300 kilometers. So in a way, I wanted to adapt this story to my own environment, and I was also thinking about like there was also a talk about this, like that when somebody dies, well, they say that people die twice, that the next time is when nobody actually remembers you, or at least that nobody is alive anymore who has seen you. And with this Oula Ivar, it is like that he died in 1942. So actually the people who will be still alive had been really small children when he was alive. So that was something I was thinking, and well, of course, this kind of thinking like that things are happening in different times and spaces, but as we see, the time is cyclical. So in that sense, I feel that things can happen like again and again, simultaneously.
Yeah. Yeah, it really makes you just kind of like, yeah, think about that kind of that cycle. Thank you for sharing that. How's our friends from the film Sky Aelans? Help me out here. If you guys if you can introduce yourself and talk a little about your beautiful, beautiful film.
Hello, I'm Edward Manuga, and we are from the Solomon Islands Sky Island film.
Yes. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Daniel Kakadi from Solomons, and yeah, from the Sky Island film team.
And I'm Regina.
I'm Neil and Junior Patrick.
So there are 9 of us, but the other 3 couldn't make it at the moment. So it's just us, and we're from the Solomon Islands. It's our first time to be part of this imagineNATIVE Film Festival. Was a big thing for us, so we're very happy. And yeah, we're so super excited. It's 6 in the morning here in Solomon Islands in the South Pacific.
That's awesome.
It was a good process. You know, we had a very good experience working together, and having new filmmakers, budding filmmakers, and already people who are already existing in this space. So learning from one another and then talking to people, getting their stories and being able to tell the truth was one of the biggest things that we've ever, really proud of.
Yeah. So Sky Islands, it's a film about the connection of people, between the people and the mountains, and the last, areas in our provinces, our islands that are very fragile and very important to us. That's our connection to the land. And these places are sacred, and they're in danger of logging, because logging is a threat to our nation at the moment. And we're trying to advocate for those areas to show that these places need protection. And for us young people in Solomon Islands, especially those living in urban areas, it's important for them to know that they have to be connected to the land in order to preserve us now for the future, for the connection to keep on going and a new generation to see that. And more advocacy on those areas are important to us. So for all of us, it's the first time to go up to those areas. Solomon Islands is made up of 9 different provinces with 900 islands with over 300 languages. So we're very diverse. So for us to go to these areas and document, even though we're like a dot on the map, but we're very, very diverse. So for us to go up to those areas and document our story as a combination, our collective story, and show it to the world and to us from the outside perspective, it's very important. So we're very happy that we're part of this, and Terra supported us to be part of this. So
1, 2, 3, go, Sikono. 1, 2, 3, go.
Miigwech, thank you. My God, there's so much beauty in everything, and just how the voices come together and they thread so naturally and yet distinct, as you were saying. Hi, Cian. Sorry, yeah.
Kia ora, yeah, no,
Yeah.
tika tera, that's correct. Kia ora, awa, tēnā rā tātou. Ko mata whaira te maunga koro te tero tōku te arawa te waka, ko te arawa te iwi, te taho tōku pāpā no Ngāti Porou, no Tarawa, te taho tōku māma no ngā tikahungunu ki te wairua no Ngai Tūhoi. Ko Cian, Elyse, White, tōku noa, tēnā tātou. Kia ora everyone, I'm Cian, born and raised in a small town just south of Auckland in New Zealand called Rotorua, which means the Two Lakes. I'm just turned 32 on October the 21st. So I'm out here in a place at the moment, I'll just quickly show you, called Raglan, which is another of my, where I whakapapa to, where my roots are connected to via my father. I'm out here with my girls, with my friends this weekend. So I'm tuning in from Raglan, which is about 2 hours from home, but I live in Rotorua. My film is called Daddy's Girl, or Kotiro. Kotiro in Te Reo Māori means girl. And it's a story inspired by my experience when I was a younger girl of losing my grandmother, who was the leader of our whānau to dementia. So she passed away. She was a very stoic, strong, powerful wahine Māori, Indigenous woman, who was very much so the glue of our whānau. And it was an interesting experience watching and witnessing this very strong, stoic Indigenous woman sort of slowly disintegrate, you know, whilst she was in the throes of suffering from Alzheimer's dementia. And yeah, the film is set in present time. It's all in the language in Te Reo Māori, and I've actually shot it inside my grandmother's house. And the relationship is between a father-daughter, and the relationship is very much so based on my relationship with my father, which is her son. It's very cheeky, it's light, it's yeah, filled with, it's quite comedic at the beginning. And sort of it's inspired by a thought I had one day about what it might be like if Dad, because there is kōrero back in New Zealand about how dementia is sometimes genetic. Yes, so it goes down through the family lines, and what it might be like if one day I had to take my father to a care home because, you know, he had dementia, and he's sort of shown at times early onset, signs of early onset. So yeah, and I'm deeply close to my dad. Yeah, it was my first film as writer-director. Since then I've shot another film called Pixie Huia with my Sekseka Nation Blackfoot brother, Joshua Manyheads, who was over here from Māori lands. And I'm about to shoot another short in March next year here in my hometown. All the stories I tell derive from my knowledge of what it is to be an Indigenous Māori woman at this point in time, and their personal stories. And I just love the platform of filmmaking as a medium to tell these stories. So yeah, that's me. Very humbled and privileged to be here with as a part of imagineNATIVE, and also to hear all of your stories. Ngā mihi nui, many thanks and acknowledgements. Kia koutou, te iwo.
That's beautiful. It's such the beautiful connection with that family, and the way the daughter and the father, and then just telling that story is really, really touching. Miguel, your film is so connected with community and place, and especially when you're talking about colonialism and the mines. And do you want to, briefly, maybe for like a minute, if you have, can talk about your process of maybe connecting with the story itself, with the people and the land?
Sure. So there, some people say that actually global capitalism started in Potosi, because it was this huge silver mine that the Spaniards exploited, and all their wealth for the Spanish crown mainly came out of Potosi, and it had some decades of glory, let's say, but now it's a very poor town, and it's a town that has this weight of its own history, and you can actually feel that or sense it when you walk through the city. So for me, it was very important to, well, I had worked before in films by friends that were filmed in mines, because mining is a very important activity in Bolivia, and the mine workers are a very strong how to say this, a very strong workers union in Bolivia. So they have this very powerful political force also. So mining has in some way been a lot in Bolivian literature or film or visual arts. And I just tried to connect with the people through the images, and I wanted to get to know, like, if those images from the past were like a collective memory, or if they were or if they belong to only the intellectuals that study those images.
Oh, wow.
And what I got to know was that actually all the school children in some way relate to these images from the past, and that was very interesting for me to know, right?
Yeah. No, and then in allowing the viewer to yeah, just sit within that idea. Yeah. It's really, like I said, it was really powerful. I'm gonna jump to Sky Island and see about, okay, so there was 9 filmmakers, and the process of getting 9 voices together and then just coming up with that storyline. Do you want to briefly tell us how that happened? Maybe like from your own perspectives?
Yeah, so well, we were given the opportunity to go and film in these areas. We didn't have a story beforehand. So when we go out there, and it's our inspiration as filmmakers, when we, you know, as storytellers, all of us are storytellers, we go to those areas, and then that's when, you know, the story began unfolding. So when we go back and when we were trying to find out how we're gonna make our stories together, and, you know, capturing the stories of the people and the land, it just unfolds itself in what becomes Sky Island, when there's no dialogue and just the capture of what is really out there. As much as possible, we wanted to ensure that, you know, we show different perspective of all areas of the island, and how the connection is really, though, like some of us live in the coastal areas, and then there's some of the mountaintop, but we all share the same connection with the land. And that's the main thing that we wanted to share in the film.
Yeah, you can see it. It's really, yeah. So I was just, yeah, I was so inside that story, and just every moment, and as it moved along, it's just so beautiful. I'm going to jump to, just so everybody gets a chance to say something. Marja, what kind of new work are you working on right now?
I'm actually planning to do a short film about this Sami mermaid. Because, you know, the mermaid story is like very common all over the world. So I was thinking a bit like that because what is happening now in the world with this climate change and everything. So I was thinking like that there is this mermaid who is coming to the shore in the north of Norway, and she's like a ghost from the past, and there's like nobody else left. So it's like the earth is empty in a way, and now this mermaid is, as a ghost, is the only one who is living now. So it's quite sad story, but that's something I'm actually going to work next year. And
nice.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to it.
Yeah.
Shelley, I'm going to ask you a question you probably get asked all the time. Your use of humor in your storytelling, and especially like there, like I was saying, I felt there was like this subtle humor within, you know what I mean, the power of the poetry within what you were sharing. So if you want to just talk briefly about the importance of humor.
Well, I think humor adds a layer to personality, and I think the story of Pauline Johnson, you could make it strictly a documentary and then it would be all seriousness. But I think there was a lot of humor in her life. She would have to be able to portray her stories, and some of the poetry that she did create were dealing with really serious issues. And I always think humor is a way of opening up that door a little bit at a time, and then people are invited to come in, based on the humor that was created in her work. And I just think that she was pretty like multifaceted. She was just very interesting. But I think humor is just such an important element to any kind of storytelling that we see.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Cian, I was just going to ask you about like, just because you talked a little about this already, but like you're out on the land and you're out, you know what I mean, and that connectiveness, and like, do you have any more to share about that connectiveness around the land and your storytelling, and kind of where you're going to go in the future with it?
Yeah, sure. I think I actually studied as an actor out here at a school called Kakadi New Zealand Drama School down in Wellington. Graduated 12 years ago, or 11 years ago now. And it's sort of a school where our Indigenous actors out here, like Cliff Curtis, and even Sam Neill, and some of those guys go. And it's really cool, getting command of the craft of acting. But I suppose as I have been involved in projects over the past 10 years, I've realized that the aligning with the story, you need to really be involved in the creation of it. So from a writer, director, producer perspective, from the genesis of the idea, because as an actor, I was finding that I was getting scripts and I had very little input by the time they hit me, and by the time I was actualizing and realizing these stories. And I found some of the stories I was telling was not an accurate representation of my voice as an Indigenous young woman in my 20s at the time. So I started to write. And when I wrote about things that inspired me, which was female heroes, women from back home that I looked up to, that really influenced me on my journey. So yeah, anything that I do, it comes directly from my roots and from my own personal story, even within Te Ao Māori, the world of Māori tanga. The next film I make is inspired by the crowning of the first Māori Miss New Zealand. They were both from the tribe I'm from, back home. Moana Whanga, she was crowned in 1954, and Maureen Kingi, who was crowned in 62. And the reason I'm focusing on that story is because I'm going to develop it into a feature, so I'm doing a short film first. But these women were crowned during a time where it was pretty much illegal in New Zealand to speak the language, to practice our prayer or our rituals. Yet these two Indigenous young girls were sort of thrust into the spotlight amidst all of that, and had to really, really skillfully manage the walk in the Western world and also the Indigenous, the Māori world back here at home. And, everything that they had to handle, the politics of not being able to speak the language, but being native speakers, of not being able to practice their prayer, but that's how they were raised, and having to sort of really fill and be seen as successful sort of native beauties in this world, but also sort of quiet down and hush down their culture. So that is really intriguing to me, and I feel that even though it's set back in the 60s, there are still parallels that I'm finding as a young woman in industries that I'm finding I'm having to navigate as well. So really, it's filmmaking and storytelling to me is an exploration of what I go through in life as an Indigenous young woman. And yeah, that's the way I'm going to continue for now.
Excellent. Love it. Yes. And then the resilience within those stories. It's wonderful. Jeffrey, there's a certain aesthetic that you have within this piece, and maybe if you want to talk about kind of like why you chose the way you shot it, like within the black background, but then, you know what I mean, with all those colors and sounds that, you know what I mean, really vibrate throughout the film, and also how maybe it reflects within your past work and your future work.
Yeah, I mean, I as a visual artist, like I'm most interested in materials and whatever history they have that comes with them. And I think that probably started in my early 20s. I worked in American collections, and so I worked as a research assistant with NAGPRA for about 4 years. And so learning all the stories about objects in museum collections really was my introduction. And you know, when we would have tribal delegations come, it was the stories that they could share with me about what we were looking at. You know, sometimes those stories weren't shared with other people. I'm sure there were stories that weren't shared with me. And I think videography, you know, it's allowed me like a way to show multiple perspectives of a material or of an object. So a lot of times it comes across in editing, you know, there's sharp cuts between showing a material kind of still, and then maybe it's very up close in movement, and then kind of hovering back and forth between abstraction and how you might recognize it more immediately. I mean, I always think about how it relates to my other work, which is influenced not only by also by, you know, queer aesthetics and, you know, club aesthetics and music. So I just try to think about how I can mash all of that together. And it was actually Sarah, while we were filming, who brought up the idea of playing A Tribe Called Red. We were listening to traditional music, and then she said, you know, can I put something else on? And I said, sure. And it just kind of brought it all together. Like their music really brought it all together, because I think they're doing a lot of that kind of patchwork and mashup as well, with like history and contemporary and digital and analog. And so so that also influenced like the editing, you know. So we did a lot of cuts knowing that I really wanted moments that kind of almost paid tribute to like early 90s VJs in like clubs, you know, like weird monitors on the dance floor that were just with the music.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually something that I've been paying attention to. A lot of it happens, you know, like live to the music. So I just really kind of moved back and forth until and it's always important, especially with 2 minutes and 50 seconds, you know, it's like, how do you get arc? You know, it's not really enough time for me to tell a narrative that I'm interested in, but so it's a really visual kind of arc and a kind of textural visual piece that I need moments of silence, I need moments of kind of awe, I need moments where we can pull back. And the black background was really because for editing purposes, when I knew it was going to be on 70 monitors, you know, I thought this way we can kind of stitch them together in a way that works.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to wrap it up right now. I want to, yes, thank you for sharing your films, your very beautiful, powerful films. And there's so much that's connected within all of these stories, and there's so much power within your voices. So miigwech. And I want to thank everybody for joining today. Join Nikki Little, who will be hosting the next feature focus tomorrow, Sunday, October 25th, for the Inconvenient Indian live Q&A at 2 p.m. Eastern on this platform. And also just a reminder to vote for your favorite feature film and your short film for the 2 Audience Choice Awards. You can vote on the festival website under the tab Vote Here. If you have any difficulties, there's a handy help button, as well, and imagineNATIVE online staff and volunteers too. Happy to help. So thank you, everybody, and take care. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Yeah.